Doug LaMalfa, a Republican from California, and he's questioning witnesses at the House Transportation Committee. So these are the people in the government responsible for passing these laws, these rules, these regulations on cars, emissions, on combustible engines, EVs, and stuff like that. And he's questioning them. Let's play this clip here.
Panelists, let me just go right down the line real fast. What % of our atmosphere is CO2?
Okay, so he's asking them what percentage of the Earth's atmosphere is CO2? Because the big thing is CO2. Cars emit too much CO2. We have to bring CO2 down, as if magically the CO2 level is like the thermostat. So we can just go over to the wall and change the thermostat of the world by how much CO2 is in the atmosphere. That's the narrative, right? Fossil fuels have too much carbon, too much emissions. And if we have the CO2 get too high, the world gets too hot. That's the narrative we've been told. Like I said, as if there's like some thermostat. Never mind the fact that plants need carbon. Never mind the fact that as supposedly the temperature has gone up in the last 120 years, I don't want to say supposedly, it has. As the temperature has gone up in the last 120 years, we have more plants and more crops. We have less famine and less starvation. Never mind that it factually, historically, has actually been better for us. Human life has expanded. Global wealth has expanded. Never mind that. Never mind the fact that plants need CO2. But they're saying that we need to adjust the amount of CO2 to adjust the temperature of the world. So let's find out. He's asking them, so you're going to make these rules, you're going to push these agendas. So how much of the atmosphere is made up of carbon? Let's hear what their answers are.
About 5%.
I'll just follow you then.
We'll go 7. That's my favorite number.
I'll see their 5 and suggest that we know that transportation causes 49% of CO2, so that's why we're all working on energy transition.
All right.
I'm going to pause that for a second. So they're like, oh, I guess, I don't know. I don't know either. I'll pay 5%. I don't know either. I'll do 5%. So they don't even know. The people that are in charge of making the rules don't even know. Now, she said, well, we know that transportation makes up 45% of the CO2 emissions. Okay, but what percentage are the CO2 emissions in the atmosphere? Let's continue listening.
What number do you think it is?
5.
Right. How about you? I didn't hear you, Mr. Dreher.
7.
7. Did you have one, Mr. Boyd?
So we got a 5, 7,
This Price is Right.
8. I'm gonna
Okay.
get the high end.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I don't mean to put you on ice. I ask a lot of people that because all we hear is climate change, CO2. I heard a couple of you on the panel saying you're looking to change your vehicles to electric, even though we don't have the electric grid. And me as a farmer, I wouldn't be real happy about running out and replacing $300,000, $500,000, $1 million pieces of equipment because someone wants it to be electric. The answer is 0.04%.
0.04%. So the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere in the world is 0.04. It's like a rounding error. Now, they're saying that human cause of this emission is like 1% of the 0.4%. And in the United States is probably 1% of the 1% of the 0.04%. So these people who are making these rules to push these agendas don't even know this data. They're acting like it's going to change the world, but they don't even know the data. And now that you hear the data, it makes up 0.4%. You can start to see why this is failing. It was not even necessary in the first place. So then why? If it's not really doing anything, if we have these people making these rules and pushing these agendas without even knowing, why is this even happening? That's a good question. Well, like any good crime series or TV show would say, well, let's follow the money, right? Follow the money. So what we can see is that ESG investing has gotten very big. As a matter of fact, this ESG funds had 0 market share or 0 total assets under management after the financial crisis in 2008. But by 2020, ESG funds were $16 trillion. They went from 0 to 16, and they're projected that these funds would exceed 50 trillion by 2025. So going from 0 to 2025. However, the US, which accounts for 11% of these ESG funds, is now seeing outflows. Money is now leaving them. $6.2 billion left the final quarter of 2022. And why? What's causing these outflows? Well, surprise, surprise, it's because the funds are not performing. They're losing money. Nobody wants to put their money into where it loses now, unless the government. The government wants to do that. You and I don't want to do that. So the results would be expected. If investors don't get returns, then they don't want to have have their money in there. Harvard Business Review said, unfortunately, ESG funds don't seem to deliver better ESG performance. So not only are they not returning investment returns, they're saying that the businesses that are running on these ESG standards are not even performing better than the non-ESG ones. So they're not returning more money, nor are the businesses working better. So what's the point? So why are these funds doing so badly? Well, as you might imagine, when they're trying to set ESG targets, they're focusing on the wrong things. Instead of focusing on building the business, they're focusing on these carbon numbers, the wrong thing. And then what happens is, what we're seeing is when managers are underperforming their earnings, they're saying, well, but it's because we're focusing on ESG. So they're using ESG as this excuse. Now, what we've seen from that is, of course, then BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, had to start dissolving their ESG funds. They've been moving back from the label. And it's not just BlackRock. We've seen State Street and other funds, Henderson Group, Columbia Threadneedle Investments. They've all dissolved their ESG funds so far in 2023. It's all falling apart. Larry Fink is even starting to backtrack this whole thing as well. He's the head of BlackRock. So we're starting to see this happen. It's all falling apart.